Hello and welcome to the Crafty Ninja channel. So I started by taking a 16-ounce Plump from Steel Magnolia, and I'm just wrapping some ultralight clay around the top and bottom to create the head and body shape. Once it is baked, I take some liquid Sculpey and I apply it to the top of my baked clay, and then I wrap my cup in a layer of Super Sculpey. As you can see, there is a pink layer on my white cup, which is the only color of liquid Sculpey that I had available. So use what you got. Once I have the cup covered, then I take an extra rolled out piece of clay and I start wrapping around the base of the tumbler to start creating his jacket. Then, with leaving a slight gap in between the last piece of clay, I wrap a second piece of clay on the other half of the tumbler. When that's finished, I take a small strip of clay and place it right at the front of where his jacket's going to be. Next, I just take a small amount of a rope of clay and I place it right where I want his mouth to go, and I just blend it in for his top lip. Then I take a little small oval ball shape and I place it right at the top of that lip area, and I create his nose. Then I use my silicone tip tool to create the nostrils. And I take another rope of clay for his bottom lip and I just place it right under that other lip that we just created, and then I blend it in. Next, I'm just adding a little bit of clay to both sides of his cheeks just to kind of fill out his face a little bit. Here I'm just marking right where I want his eye to go as I add a little bit more clay to the side of his head just to give it a little bit more fullness around the side of his skull. Here I just take another rope of clay and I place it right at the top of his forehead just to kind of fill it out a little bit. Then I just take my silicone tip tool and just create some creases and wrinkles in the forehead. Then I just take a little bit of clay to fill out the socket area that we had created earlier for the shape of his eye, and then I blend it in with my silicone tip tool. just adding a few more wrinkles right around the side of his eyes. And just a little bit on the bridge of his nose. Then I just repeat everything on the other side of his face. Next, we're just going to take some small ropes of clay of different sizes and place it on his jacket just to create the creases and wrinkles of his jacket. Just use my silicone tip tool in some areas just to add a little bit more different types of wrinkles. Then I just take my ball tool and I use it to kind of create a fuzzy-ish texture right at the front of his jacket. Then I took another long strip of clay and placed it right around his neck to create that neck collar flap that he has. Then I just continued the ball tool technique for the collar of his jacket. Then I just take some strips of clay and place it right at the sides of his jacket. That's going to be very similar in texture to the front of his jacket. I'm just taking some larger pieces of clay to create the arms, and I'm just putting it right at the sides of his jacket where those seams are we just made and blending it in. Next, I'm taking another piece of clay to put at the end of our arms to create the hands. Next, I just cut 3 sections for his fingers and shape them into the shape that I want his fingers to be. Keep in mind when you are making your arms, if you're wanting this to be more of a cup and not a bowl, that his arms are long enough to reach a smaller cup. I made mine too short and couldn't reach the small cup that I wanted, so it ended up being way bigger than I intended, so I had to turn it into a bowl instead. So just keep that in mind when you are making his arms. Then I take another piece of clay and I wrap it around his arm to create the sleeve of his jacket. Then I added another strip of clay around his wrist to create that sleeve cuff and then texture it. And then I repeat on the other side for his other arm. Now for what is, or was supposed to be his cup, but ended up being a bowl, I baked this piece of ultralight clay. You could also do this with foil, and then I just cover it in liquid Sculpey and clay, and then just smooth it out really well. Once my bowl is covered, then I take another long strip of clay and I wrap it around the side of the bowl to create the lip and give it that illusion that it's holding something. And then I blend it in on the bottom. Now if I were to make this again, I would definitely recommend having wire coming from his hands into the cup itself or bowl to give it a little added support. Mine ended up breaking off in the baking process and I had to fix it, so I would just keep that in mind when you are making this cup. Now I had forgotten to add holes to my clay before I baked it, so I drilled these holes in after baking. And I just add a little bit of liquid Sculpey and some unbaked clay into the holes to give the wire for his ears a little bit of something to kind of hold it in place. Then I just take some armature wire and I place it into those holes that I had just created. The length of these I did not measure, so you'll just have to gauge how wide you want your ears to be. And then I just place a little bit of unbaked clay around the base just to hold it in place really snugly, and then I blend it in to his head. Once I am happy with the placement of the wire, then I wrap each of the wire in foil to give a little bit more for the clay to hold onto, and just to give it a little bit of extra stability and shape. Then I just take some rolled out clay and I wrap it around the foil to start to create the ear shape. Just take another snake of clay and wrap it right at the top part of his ear to create that ear fold that he has. Then I repeat the same process on the other ear. To finish off this entire sculpt, I am creating some tentacles to come out of his bowl of soup, and I just do that by creating tentacle shaped pieces of clay and adding some suction cups with some balls of clay and my ball tool. Since I have baked my clay, I am applying a little bit of liquid Sculpey to my tentacle to get it a little bit of stronger adhesive to my cup. Then I repeated the same process for the other tentacle. Now it's time to paint. One of my favorite parts of doing my sculpt is painting it because it just brings the whole thing to life. Here I am using a green color. I mixed it with green, I think it was a regular green. I'll leave a note of the colors and names that I used, but I believe this was a regular green color mixed with a light gray color to kind of give it a lighter green color. I didn't have this color on hand, so that's why I had to mix my own. And I just paint his face and most of his ears and the back of his head. Here I am using a mixture of kind of a coral pink that I had mixed with that same gray, and I'm painting the inside of his ears. And then I'm also going to use the same green that I had used previously and just kind of blend it in with the wet paint of the pink to give it more of a kind of a gradient blend. Next I am painting his hands with the same color green that I used for his head. Then I use some black for his eyes. So I just wanted to add a little bit more color to his face, so I take that same pink that I used for his ears and I just place it right at the bottom of his eyes and the top of his eyes, and I use the same technique with his ears, and I use the green and it just like kind of gradiently blended in with the base color, so it's there but it's not like a stark pink on his face. Next I take this darker tan color to paint the nails of his fingers. Now for his jacket, I used a lighter tan color. I probably could have gone a little bit darker, especially around the bulk of his jacket, but this was the color that I had, and I just paint the entire jacket this same color. For the little whites of his eyes, I used my dotting tool, and I decided to use 2 dots for the eyes in this one. That's not something I normally do, but I thought it added a little bit more character to the cup. Now I'm just painting a dark brown for the outside of his mug to make it kind of a wood-like color. Now for the soup, I was struggling to figure out what color I wanted to use, and I ended up using a mixture of the tan that I used for his jacket, the brown that I used for the bowl, and I added just a smidgen of black to give it kind of this weird brownish color. It can be whatever color you'd like it to be. I feel like this soup is going to be alien soup and something that's not exactly appetizing to me. Next I take the same color that I used for the actual soup broth and I add a little bit of purple to it to give it kind of a muted purple color for the tentacles. Then with that same purple, I added just a little bit of a cream colored white, I think, or either that or it was gray, I don't remember, but it was a lighter color to kind of lighten up that purple for the tentacle suction cups. And here is our baby Grogu tumbler. I had so much fun making this one. I don't do faces very much, and it was just a fun project, and I just love how he turned out. He is so cute. As always, if you are making this on a tumbler that you are going to be drinking out of, be sure to seal with an FDA compliant epoxy or epoxy alternative like Crystalac. If you enjoyed watching me make this, like and subscribe to my channel for more of my 3D designs. I hope you have a great day, and remember to stay crafty.